Welcome everyone to another video, and in this video we are going to be talking about how to play 5 different Kanto Cup teams with 5 different leads and how to play them. I'm going to be showing you the type of spreadsheet I would develop for my highest tier students, the ones that either subscribe through Patreon or hire me privately. This is the type of spreadsheet we would develop together once we've decided the team that they want to run. And this request is in order to come up with the teams. These are not my 5 teams. These are 5 suggested teams that I pulled from Twitter, where I asked, what are some of your favorite Kanto Cup teams based off of your practice so far? So let's go ahead and dive right into it. The first one is a triple Shadow team. It consists of Shadow Hypno, Shadow Machamp, Shadow Snorlax. I'm assuming that the Hypno is running Thunder Punch, Shadow Ball. It could also be running Fire Punch and Shadow Ball, which change up some matchups. It has really great coverage because it's very much the classic Kanto Cup meta, which is a dominant Psychic type that could be either Hypno or Mew. Then an anti-psychic, which is in this case Snorlax, could also be Alolan Muck, and then the counter to the anti-psychic. So the anti-psychic, which would be Machamp in this case. So fantastic coverage. Basically covers the entire meta. In terms of bulk, it is rated D because you have 3 Shadow Pokemon, one of them also being Machamp, so your bulk can only be so much. In terms of safety, it's very high mostly because of Snorlax, and the consistency. It's very consistent because of Shadow. A lot of it's fast move pressure, the confusion, the counters, and the lick damage. And there's not too many times that you need to bait. A little bit with Hypno if you need to land the Shadow Ball ultimately, and then the Rock Slide with Machamp. But a lot of this is fast move pressure. Let's talk about how you play each of these matchups. So this is what I would normally prepare for my highest tier students. I basically list out the lead, in this case Shadow Hypno with Confusion, Thunder Punch, and Shadow Ball, and then followed by Machamp with Counter, Cross Chop, Rock Slide, and then Snorlax with Lick, Body Slam, and Superpower. And then I just walk through them, what they should typically do in the lead scenario. Obviously, this is an evolving document as we play through these matchups, and as they provide me feedback, and as we look at how other people play the matchups, and then we change and adjust it. But this would be like the day 0 spreadsheet that we'd create. So against a Hypno lead, you basically just stay, hope that you can land the Shadow Ball, hope that you can bait them, and you just play with that matchup. There's not any particular rhyme or reason on how to play. You just play it and then play the guessing game with them. Against Lickitung, you do want to switch because against Lickitung and Snorlax, you do want to switch because the Lick does deal super effective damage to Hypno, and that damage really adds up quickly. You definitely want to get out of there. So you switch to Snorlax, hope that you can regain the switch advantage. Against Marowak, I recommend that you stay, mostly because Machamp also has a poorer matchup against Marowak. They both have playable matchups, but here you can either play it 2 ways. One is you just straight Shadow Ball, don't shield. You can live the Shadow Bone. You should be able to, you live the Shadow Bone, and then hope that you land the Shadow Ball. Or you can play the 2 shield matchup. If you shield the Shadow Bone or shield the Shadow Ball, then you should be able to win the 2 shield matchup pretty easily. Typically, that would mean that you would throw a move once, force in the shield, and then Confusion down. So you'll have to double shield, and then you'll be technically down a shield because they'll still have one. But you should be able to regain that shield with Hypno's charge moves. If you see a Alolan Muck, which is obviously one of the hardest counters to Hypno, immediately switch to Snorlax. If you see a Lapras, you have to shield at least once to be able to win the 1 shield or 2 shield. You lose 0 shield. Against Dugong, I recommend that you don't shield, but you can definitely play out that matchup as well. But the further the matchup goes, the more favorable it is for Dugong because it does have the ability to debuff your Confusions and Thunder Punches. Against Dragonair, you just match shields. Kind of a tough matchup, but the confusion damage is doing quite a bit. It does outpace you to the Aqua Tail, so if you end up getting baited, it's a little bit tricky matchup. Against Alolan Sandslash, because you don't have Fire Punch, recommend that you immediately switch to Snorlax. And then Blastoise, just match shields. It's about roughly the same pace to get to the charge moves. They'll be able to beat you the first one, but you'll be able to beat them to the second one. Against Razor Leafers, you just stay, match shields. If it's just Shadow Victory Bell, you should be able to Confusion down after one shield. Against Machamp, you just stay, great matchup. Mew, I recommend you just go straight Shadow Ball, because Mew also has a really good matchup against Machamp, and then you lick down with Snorlax after. If they switch in a Hypno, you go to Snorlax. If they switch in Lickitung or Snorlax, go to Machamp. If they switch in their Marowak, you switch in Snorlax. They switch in Alolan Muck, Lapras, Dugong, you go to Machamp. And they switch in Wigglytuff, you stay. Dragonair, you stay. Alolan Sandslash, you switch to Machamp. Blastoise, Razor Leaf for Machamp, I recommend that you stay. That's probably your best matchup. And then Mew, you switch to Snorlax. So that's generally what I tell people to do. I tell my students to study these matchups, understand what they need to do, and then as they go over time, we adjust and develop these strategies even. So the second team is, I call it No Muck Please team, and basically this entire team is weak to Alolan Muck because of the Ghost, Psychic, and Fairy typing, and Alolan Muck being a dark and poison type, I should say. And someone actually commented saying Alolan Muck says hi. But this team is still very strong. It has amazing coverage, has very good bulk, has good safety and good consistency. So it is still a very strong team per PV Poke. We have Alolan Marowak in the lead with Fire Spin, Bone Club, and Shadow Bone. I'm assuming no Shadow on this Hypno. And then Wigglytuff, obviously, because it's shiny. It could be single move shiny, but likely not Shadow. And then Charm, Ice Beam, and Play Rough for Wigglytuff. So against Hypno, you just stay, you match shields, you hope to land the Shadow Bone or bait them. Lickitung and Snorlax, recommend that you switch to Wigglytuff, because it is a pretty bad matchup. It's also a bad matchup for Hypno, but I feel like there's a little bit more counterplay with Hypno, and then and against Wigglytuff, you're really hoping just to get a shield advantage. You don't even really want to shield Wigglytuff once they counter switch. You hopefully just get the shield, farm up with Hypno, land some Thunder Punches, but Licky users are very tough for this team. Against Alolan Marowak, you just stay, play the bait game, play the mind game, play the guessing game. It's the mirror match. Alolan Muck, this is what I really recommend someone would do. I recommend that you throw 2 Bone Clubs, you shield once, and you try to catch the second Dark Pulse on Wigglytuff, which in theory, if they don't get an extra Snarl in, should be one Fire Spin after you throw the second Bone Club. So 2 Bone Clubs is 7 Fire Spins, 2 Dark Pulses are 8 Snarls, and they're both the same duration. So if you can catch, and they'll be pretty low if they don't shield, and you should be able to charm down the Alolan Muck pretty easily, or take care of the Alolan Muck later with Hypno or Alolan Marowak. Obviously, not a great situation either way. Lapras, recommend you just match shields. It's a playable matchup if you end up landing the Shadow Bone or Shadow Ball or bait them. It's still a tough matchup, but you could switch to Hypno or Wigglytuff. And then Dugong, I recommend you just straight Shadow Bone. Pretty good matchup for Marowak. Obviously, be careful of the Water Pulse, but Water Pulse is a pretty bad matchup. Oh, this one says switch to Wigglytuff. It actually should say ooh, okay. Let me actually just fix this really quickly here. Okay, we got it all fixed. I will include a link to the spreadsheet so you can have the most up-to-date information. But obviously, against Wigglytuff, you do want to stay with Alolan Marowak. It is a positive matchup. Obviously, you just throw the Bone Clubs because it does double resist the Shadow Bone. It is a long matchup, but it's still a positive one. Against Dragonair, you want to switch to Hypno. Against Alolan Sandslash, you want to stay. Obviously, positive matchup. And then Blastoise, you want to switch to Wigglytuff. Against Razor Leaf, you want to stay. Machamp, you want to stay. Mew, you straight Shadow Bone. It's not a great matchup, but again, against these like Dark and Ghost type fast moves, you really don't have much choice because it's a pretty bad matchup for Hypno as well. Against Hypno, switching, you kind of have to stay. Lickitung and Snorlax, you switch to Wigglytuff because it does double resist the lick damage. Alolan Marowak, you have to stay as well. Muck, kind of play it the exact same, or you switch to Wigglytuff and double shield and charm down. And then Lapras, you switch to Hypno. Same with Dugong. You could also stay against Dugong if you want to. Wigglytuff, you stay. Dragonair, you switch to Wigglytuff. If they're completely mad and they switch in a Alolan Sandslash onto a Marowak, you stay. Blastoise, you switch to Hypno. Razor Leaf, you stay as well. And then Machamp and Mew, I actually recommend that you switch to Wigglytuff because then you don't have to worry as much about the Rock Slide. Against Machamp, you could stay as well, but the threat of the Rock Slide is pretty tremendous. Let's keep going here. The next team I call it Alola Everyone team because it does carry 2 Alolan Pokemon and Snorlax with the lead. This has a B for coverage, C for bulk because Alolan Graveler is kind of glassy, and B for safety because it doesn't have a great safe switch, and then B for consistency. Let's go ahead and take a look at how the Pokemon plays out. So you want to have Lick, Body Slam, Superpower for Snorlax, Volt Switch, Rock Blast, and Rock Slide for Alolan Graveler, and then Fire Spin, Bone Club, and Shadow Bone for Alolan Marowak. And against Hypno, you want to stay. You also have to be careful with Focus Blast. Lickitung, you just want to match shields. Snorlax, you want to match shields. Alolan Marowak, this is what I recommend. You build up to EQ, the equivalent of EQ energy, which is just short of 2 body slams. You throw the body slam to like fake that you have the earthquake. You don't shield, and then you look down afterwards. You'll be at very low HP, but you should have almost 2 body slams ready. They won't be able to farm very much. You should be in a pretty good spot. Against Alolan Muck, you shield once, and you should be able to win the 1 shield matchup. Lapras, you just match shields. You win the 2 shield straight body slam. You can also win the 1 shield if you land the superpower, but it's kind of difficult. Against Dugong, what I recommend is you go straight superpower. You double up on the superpower, then you throw both. If they shield either one, then you can catch the second icy win on Alolan Marowak. And then against Wigglytuff, you switch to Marowak. Kind of like not a great situation. You can also switch to Graveler if you want, but Graveler I find would be a pretty tough switch in. But you could switch to Graveler and go Rock Blast or Rock Slide, or maybe you want to switch advantage that way. Against Dragonair, you just stay and don't shield, and you should be able to win the 0 shield. Against Alolan Sandslash, you can win every even shield matchup straight superpower, but you always want to build up and then build up to 2, throw 1, build up to 2, throw 1, and then near the end you just throw both of them. But you should be able to win every even shield. That way, you want to shield the later ones when you are after you're debuffed. Blastoise, you match shields. Razor Leaf, Machamp, they're both losing matchups, but you really can't switch out because Alolan Graveler has worse matchups. And then against Mew, you just want to match shields. Okay, and it's a positive matchup. Hypno, you want to stay. Lickitung, you want to stay. Snorlax, you want to stay. Marowak, you want to stay. Alolan Muck, you want to switch to Alolan Graveler. You can switch out faster than the positive matchup. Lapras, you want to stay. Dugong, you want to stay. Wigglytuff, you want to switch to Marowak. Dragonair, you want to stay. Alolan Sandslash, you want to switch to Marowak. Blastoise, you want to stay. Razor Leaf, Machamp, you want to switch to Marowak. And then against Mew, you also want to stay. The next team is from HM London, who's a Twitch streamer. Check him out on Twitch. He said he swept all my viewer battles with Alolan Muck, Shadow Hypno, and Alolan Marowak. As you can see, this team is quite strong with 3 Bs in coverage, bulk, and consistency, and has very high safety, mostly because of the Shadow Hypno. So let's take a look at how this team performs. You want to have Snarl, Dark Pulse, Sludge Wave, then Lick, Body Slam, Superpower for Snorlax, and then you want to have Fire Spin, Bone Club, and Shadow Bone for Alolan Marowak. So against Hypno, you want to stay. Against Lickitung and Snorlax, you can win the 0 and 2 shield matchup. And then against the Alolan Marowak, you want to stay. Positive matchup. Against the Mirror, you also want to stay. Sludge Wave is more energy efficient than Dark Pulse, so you obviously want Sludge Waves. Against Lapras and Dugong, they are losing matchups. Uh, Against Dugong, you could switch to Marowak or to Hypno, but I wouldn't recommend that you switch with against Lapras, and I recommend that you farm down with Hypno afterward. Against Wigglytuff, if you land the Sludge Wave, you win. If you get shielded, then it's gonna be really tough. They can control the switch advantage there by double shielding, so something to take into consideration. But if they double shield, that's totally fine because you can absorb the damage on Alolan Marowak against Dragonair. You also stay because Alolan Marowak has a bad matchup against Dragonair, but it's an okay matchup for Alolan Muck. Alolan Sandslash, I recommend that you switch to Snorlax, and then Blastoise, you win the 0 and 2 shield, and Razor Leaf, you stay. Machamp, you stay, despite it being I don't know if he actually stay. Okay, this one you actually probably should switch to Marowak. I don't know why I'm saying stay here. But again, check out the spreadsheet for the latest version. Against Mew, you want to stay. Yeah, you definitely switch out to Marowak here, rather than staying. And then if they switch in Hypno, Lickitung, Snorlax, Alolan Marowak, or their own Muck, you wanna stay. Because obviously the back line is very weak to Alolan Muck. And then Lapras, Dugong, Dragonair, and Blastoise, I recommend that you Dark Pulse, then switch to Snorlax just to gain the shield or do damage. And then against Wigglytuff, Alolan Sandslash, Razor Leaf, and Machamp, I recommend that you switch to Marowak. And then against Mew, I recommend that you stay as well. Because let's go ahead and go to the last team. This is from Big Poppa Josh. So I call the team Big Poppa. So the team consists of Wigglytuff, Lapras, and Alolan Marowak. Wigglytuff with Charm, Ice Beam, and Play Rough. So against Hypno, you stay. You can shield once and should be able to win switch. Lickitung, you stay. Snorlax, you stay. Alolan Marowak, you switch to the mirror of Alolan Marowak. It's kind of gonna be a tough situation. And then Alolan Muck, if you get baited, you shield. If you get baited, then I recommend that you try to catch the Sludge Wave onto Alolan Marowak. Unlikely they will get to 2 Sludge Waves. Lapras, you stay. Dugong, you stay. It's kind of a losing matchup. Wigglytuff, you throw the charge move. The reason I recommend that you throw the charge move is that you'll get the shield if they try to charm down, and then you can absorb the damage on Alolan Marowak, so that's bad for you. Dragonair, I recommend that you stay. A very positive matchup. And then Alolan Sandslash, I recommend that you switch to Lapras. Blastoise, I recommend you stay. It ends up being a losing matchup because the water gun pressure is a little bit too much. Razor Leaf, I recommend you switch to Lapras, but Razor Leaf is really bad for your team because it does beat Wigglytuff and Lapras. But if you switch into Lapras, it's not a terrible matchup. You can pretend you have the Ice Beam, maybe grab a shield, and then come in with Marowak afterwards. And against Mew, I also recommend you stay. It's a very positive matchup. And then if they switch in Hypno, Marowak, if they switch in Lickitung, Snorlax, stay. If they switch in Alolan Marowak, you switch Lapras. Same thing with Muck. And then Lapras, I recommend you stay as well. And then maybe catch the Surf if you want to. Dugong, Wigglytuff, Alolan Sandslash, and Razor Leaf, I recommend that you switch to Marowak. Dragonair, you stay. Obviously, I don't know who's crazy enough to switch into Dragonair. And then against Blastoise, I recommend that you switch to Lapras, go for that Skull Bash. And then Machamp and Mew, I recommend you stay because they're very positive. So that's the breakdown of the team. I'm going to include a link to the spreadsheet so you can go ahead and check it out. I'm going to try to update it as I see the meta evolve. But this is essentially what I tell people to try to play out different leads or switch-ins. Obviously, you have to adapt if they switch in halfway, and if they switch in a full Wigglytuff on your Alolan Marowak when it's pretty low, then obviously you probably don't want to stay because you don't want to get farmed down. But this is a good starting point, and then you adjust and develop your strategies from there. Anyways, if you want me to break down more Kanto Cup teams or do some of these breakdowns, let me know down in the comment section below. And best of luck with your battles this week in the Kanto Cup. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see everyone in the next video.